Welcome back, sewists. Today we're doing a deep dive on interfacing. I have a huge stack here of a whole bunch of different ones. We're going to talk about what interfacing to use when, the difference between fusible and sew-in, how do you know if you need interfacing, and I'm going to talk to you about how to fuse interfacing the proper way or the way that's going to maybe make it the most successful. So we have a lot to talk about. Before we do, outfit of the day. This is the game day tee. I have a video on making it. I made a couple versions of it. I love this pattern. It's so cute, and I love that you can combine all of the fabrics. I love combining patterns. You'll see that in a minute when we go to some examples for interfacing. So let's deep dive into interfacing. Now this won't be a complete compendium. There's so much to interfacing, and it's so specific to the project and the fabric you're using, but I hope this will give you some a good starting point when you start looking at the project you're working on and help you know where to turn to find interfacing for your projects. So interfacing is a fabric layer. It's applied to the wrong side of the fabric where it can't be seen. It's used to add shape, stability, and structure. Now, one thing I'm not going to go into in this video is all of the interfacings used if you're tailoring, because that is a building up of layers on the inside to give the structure, usually for the nice front, the type of collar, the shoulder pad, all of that stuff. There's a lot of layers. Usually it's a combination of fusible and sew-in. I'm just not going to go into that. That is its own long video. So we're going to talk about our everyday sewing and just general uses for interfacing and the types you can get. And there are a lot. So how do you know what to use? How do you know if you need a sew-in or a fusible? How do you know what weight to get? Because when you go to pick out interfacing, there's a bunch there. Usually it's fusible, and at least in general, it's a fusible interfacing that you'll see in the interfacing section at the store, and they have lots of weights. And just where I am right now, I have this one that's so stiff it will stand on its own. It's heavy and stiff, and this is not for garment construction. This is what I used when I made the traveling bag that I made. That's what that is from. So that's a craft interfacing, but it is fusible, and I'll show you how you can tell if it's fusible or not. And you can go all the way to super soft. This is a knit interfacing that is stretchy, and it is a tricot. It's slightly sheer. So you have something for every project, something for every type of fabric. Let me show you a few garments before we really deep dive into my pile here. And we're also going to go over to the ironing board. And I'm going to show you some close-ups of some projects and how I knew what to choose for the fabric that I was working with. Not every fabric you choose can take an iron-on interfacing. This is a silk charmeuse. It's very delicate. You can see it's on a silk chiffon. And when I made this, I did not want to fuse anything to this beautiful charmeuse. It's very easy to demarcate on like charmeuse and velvets and some of those. So I can feel it on the inside. I have a very fine layer of, I think it's an organza in there. It's pretty delicate, but I needed it for cuffs. I was doing cuffs, I was doing buttonholes, so I needed something that would give it some nice stability, but does not change the look and the softness of that beautiful charmeuse. So this one has an organza on the inside. It was a sew-in, so you can feel it in between the two layers, and that's what's inside this. So what made me choose a sew-in and the weight was the type of fabric I was working with and where it was going on the garment. I needed something a little more stable because it's a cuff. It was going to have buttonholes, but I didn't want it to change my fabric in any way, so organza was the way to go. You can see a sequins, and I'm thinking about doing a shirt out of this. Same thing, this is slightly sheer, you can see through it. So if I were going to do something like this, I definitely would choose an organza. It is a knit, so I could also go with a soft tricot knit that matches. I could get something in this sort of same blush color and use that as an interfacing to go. Inter means inside, so it's an inside facing. So I could use something like that in a garment that was going to have a soft sheer netting or sequins, something like this. Definitely could not fuse on this. It would have to be a sew-in, but it is a knit. It doesn't really stretch that much, but it does have a little bit of stretch. So I'd probably, if I were going to do something where I knew I needed it, you can see here, this is the fabric without the sequin. I could even, depending on how much I needed, I could use these outer selvage edges as an interfacing potentially, or I could get something very similar to what this fabric is, just another fabric. Tricot knit is a great one. It's sort of like what slips are made out of. It is a great interfacing for delicate projects like this, especially since this is a synthetic. Often, like in that silk, I used an organza. What I didn't say was I used a silk organza. I did not use a synthetic organza. So I used silk on silk with this. But if it were a synthetic like this, then I'm fine with going with a synthetic interfacing. Now this one, you can see it's just a sheer fabric. It's a Georgette. And I've made this one on... This one has a video, so you can actually see me applying the interfacing to this. And I did use a fusible. I was kind of careful. And the only place it went was in this neckline. So this has a very lightweight fusible interfacing, and I just had to be careful about fusing because this is synthetic. But the whole rest of it, that's the only place there's interfacing, is in the neckline. This is another one. This is a Georgette, a synthetic Georgette, and this has interfacing in the facing, and because it's cut open, I needed something nice and stable for this neckline, and I've sewn it shut, but you can kind of see, you can actually see a little bit of the interfacing there, and I used a super lightweight fusible for this too, so that's what. Okay, I'm sitting here editing this video and I completely forgot to mention I have a video on a little interfacing trick, and it is how it's on the green shirt actually, and it is a way to make the edges of facings very beautiful by using your interfacing before you fuse it. And you can also do it with a sew-in. So I will link that below. I think it's called my interfacing trick. It's not a very long video, and it may really change the way you sew. It makes the inside so pretty. It's just a very beautiful little trick. All right, back to the video. Again, it's the application. I have a very soft crepey Georgette fabric. I don't want anything real heavy, but I need something with some stability for this neckline, and that's what I chose. If you're having problems with your whole neckline actually like misshaping, even if you've done your stay stitching, you can even put a tiny strip of interfacing right along that neckline if you needed to. You can see here's my bias turn, and there's no interfacing anywhere but in the front. Now I've done a video on this too. I did a video on the red dress. These are projects of the past. I made this over 30 years ago, and this is a silk tussa, and it is completely interfaced. Every single piece has interfacing behind it because of the nature of tussa. It's very soft, and it will change its shape, and I wanted to give it enough stability for wearing. So I had advice from the ladies I worked with. So if I open this up, I'm going to pull the lining up. You can see I have a knit interfacing in here. A knit or a weft interfacing is perfect for this. I used a weft interfacing in my coat, and I will show you those in a minute, but you can see the entire thing is completely almost underlined. So this is knit here, but in the front, I did use a weft. So here's the weft interfacing. And that's because the front needed a little more shaping and needed more stability. I didn't want it to sag. And then, of course, I have buttonholes and buttons, too, so I had to make sure I had something stiff enough for buttonholes and buttons. So I used weft on all of the front pieces here. This is weft. And then I went to just a knit on the rest of it, including the sleeve. Everything has interfacing behind it on this. And this is fusible. Silk will take, especially a silk like this that's got the rougher texture, because this is less processed. You can definitely fuse it. Okay, let me just give you a few basics. Interfacing can be woven, knit, or a non-woven. A non-woven is like most of these, what I consider like a pellon, like this right here. This is considered a non-woven. It's almost like a felted fabric. It's glued together fiber. So to me, that's a little bit like a felt fabric, and it has a glue dot on the other side as a rule. You can find a few fabrics that look like this that don't have the glue on it also, but almost always the easiest way to find it is with glue on it, which is what this is. Those are the fabric types that interfacing will come in. And I showed you a minute ago, it comes from the extremely lightweight to the super heavy. This one's just standing here holding itself up. It's so heavy. This one is the Peltex. That's what this super heavy one is. It's called Peltex. This is a Pellon brand. There's a few well-known brands, and Pellon, I think, is probably the one that you will see the most often when you go into your store. All right, we're going to start with sew-in interfacings, and we're going to look at them up close. This is just a lightweight jersey knit. It's not super stretchy. It's very soft. You can see the soft hand on this. And this is a great one to put under other lightweight soft things where you need just a little something added that won't add weight to the garment. And you can get this in just every color under the sun. This is a very easy one to get, and that you can actually order it. When you order it, they sometimes will give you a weight on this, and it's very inexpensive. This is a great interfacing for anything lightweight that you don't want to change the drape of the fabric. Or if it is a knit, you can also get this that's much more stretchy than this one. This one has a little give, but if you have a knit where you know you want it to have a little more stretch, you can also get this with more stretch than this one. You can get it, this one is 100% polyester. They also make a super soft, lightweight cotton. That is another option if you need to go with all natural fibers. Now, I would say one of the most common sew-in interfacings is organza. Organza and organdy are two different fabrics. This one's actually organdy, it's cotton. Organza is usually not cotton, so look at how sheer that is, but it's stiff, very stiff. You can see the stiffness in it. And this makes great interfacing. This is often used inside a puff sleeve. You can use it as a gather to make a nice stiff puff sleeve stand out. This is organdy. It's cotton. It can be used behind silks and other synthetic or other natural fibers that you want to protect from having a synthetic. Sometimes you need natural on natural for them to wear evenly. You can see how sheer it is. So if you're using this in a sheer fabric, it's not going to add a lot or change the color very much. You can get this in colors, though most commonly it'll be in like black, gray, or white when used as an interfacing, but you can get organdy in colors. So organdy. And the synthetic version of organdy is organza, which I don't have a piece up here, but it's very common, also very inexpensive, usually polyester. These two look identical at first blush, but they're different. I have a batiste and I have a broadcloth. Again, a very inexpensive. These are cotton poly blends, but you can get them. This one actually feels more cotton than poly. This one feels more poly than cotton. But they wear nicely. They have different weights. So the batiste is lighter weight, a little more sheer. Great for interfacing in some of your more delicate fabrics. If you're working with a voile or something like that, which has some stiffness but is kind of sheer, you might want to go with something like a batiste, or you could go back to your organza, depending on what the application is, or you can get another voile. I wish I had a voile up here. I do not have even a single piece to give you an example of. But this is batiste. I got this at Hobby Lobby. I would recommend, if you're working with a woven natural fiber like this, and it's a garment that's going to get washed. Let's say I'm putting a cotton batiste into another cotton batiste or another cotton fabric. Pre-shrink both of them. Now, organdy can go very soft. There's a lot of sizing, or organza. Organza won't, but organdy will go quite soft because it has a lot of sizing in it. So if you pre-shrink this or pre-wash this, it may change it. Be prepared to also press it out. You may need to put some more sizing back into it, depending. It just depends on the fabric, but as a rule, it gets pretty soft after the first washing. Usually, I would say most things that I put it into are silks that I do not wash. I dry clean, and so I don't worry about it. So here's Batiste. You can see how sheer it is. And here's broadcloth. Not as sheer, a little stiffer, less, it's more opaque. And this is one that pretty much most garments, if you want to use a sew instead of an interfacing, I just go with a good old broadcloth. This it's inexpensive. You can get it in every color under the sun, easy to wash and dry. It will wear really well. It's easy to work with. Broadcloth is the way to go. I would say this is sort of the most common. Batiste right behind it. Your more specialty fabrics you might be using, an organdy or organza. So these are a few of the sew-ins that you can get. I will just name a couple more. Here's my knit. Buckram, which is another one you could definitely use as a sew-in. So now let's look at all of these fusibles. These are the Craft Fuse. If I stand with the light just right. Can you see the shine on that? That's the glue. This is fusible. This is the non-fusible side. So this is what gets stuck to the wrong side of the fabric and glued down, which we're going to go over and do. Here's another Craft Fuse. You can see the shine of the glue. Nice and stiff. This is the shirt shaper. This is the right side. This is the glue side. And a lot of these you can really feel the dots. There's like little dots on there. That's shirt shaper. And this is my featherweight. This is the one I have loads of. This is the fusible side. It's not as shiny as the others, but it definitely, you can feel the dots. This is the right side. You can see how sheer it is and how soft it is, but it still gives a nice shape. Great for going under buttonholes and buttons. Okay, here's the weft. This is the fusible side. This white side is fusible. Let me come to an edge here. And here we go. So we have a right and a wrong. This one's really easy to see. So here is what I consider the right side. It's nice and soft. It feels really nice. Slightly sheer. You can see through it. And then this is the side that fuses down. And this is what in my pretty silk tussa jacket I had in the ivory color, and this is what I used in my wool coat. And I pretty much underlined it. This is what I love this for like an underlining, an interfacing as underlining. That's what I use this for. And it gives nice shape and stability, but you can see it's nice and soft and flexible, but it protects and holds that fabric together. I really like a good weft interfacing. And then here are the two knits that I have. This one is, I gotta feel them to tell the difference. Okay, this is a traditional tricot knit, really lightweight, and you can kind of see, put my hand in there so you can see. Can you see the sort of zigzaggy looking knit design in it? Which reminds me of the weft, has that same sort of zigzaggy. That's why I say this one feels like a combination of the weft and the knit. But this is a tricot, and then this side, I can feel the glue dots on this side. Very soft and lightweight, great for using with something super soft and drapey. And then this one is another knit. You can see how sheer it is. I could see using this on a lot of things that are soft, like a crepe. Anything where I don't want to add a charmeuse, a satin. The thing with satins is you have to be really careful when ironing them because they will demarcate. But great fabric for that. And again, you could just go with a lightweight knit, similar like a tricot knit like this, and do a sew-in instead. And then this one is the Shape Flex. My new favoritist of all interfacings. This is the glue side. And this is the non-glue side. You can see it's a little bit sheer. It has some nice stability. It's very much a batiste with glue on it. And it's woven. I have one more interfacing to show you that is a fusible. This is fairly stiff. I don't have its paper. It feels a little like the shirt shaper. It's not as light as the featherweight. It is fusible, and it is a dark, I think it might be considered black, but it's a gray. And if you're working with dark colored fabrics, you don't always want to put white behind them. And so here is a darker fabric interfacing that will help you protect the integrity of the outside of the look. Because sometimes if you fuse something white behind something dark, that part of the garment looks totally different. So I do have, I had a knit one that was darker, and I have this one, and I just had it wadded up with my fabric I was going to cut samples with, and I missed it. So here it is. I wish I had its paper. I usually keep one piece of paper and just pin it to it so I can keep track of what my interfacings are. And this one, I kind of think it came home without any paper on it. This little bucket, this is something my sister Susan taught me. I want to say I was in college when she showed me this. And what she does is she keeps all of her big scraps like this, because there's often a time where we're like, I need a little piece to go behind an eyelet or a single buttonhole or something like that. I just need a little piece of interfacing. And so I take my scraps that are big enough to do something with, and I just have them in here, and I have all weights, all types. There's knits, and if I need something special, I go through my little bucket and I find my piece that I need. Yeah, here you can see here's some of my nice knit. This is one of those, you can see how many different types of knits there are. This is a nice big piece of just a good knit interfacing, very stable this way, very stretchy this way. But if I needed a little piece, especially sometimes you're working with a knit and they're just giving you a trouble in a spot, and you could fuse a little piece of interfacing behind there while you're working on it, and it would behave better while you're doing your sewing. Interfacing can also just help you with the sewing machine, because it gives a little more stability and structure under the needle while you're sewing. It'll keep it from stretching or moving as much. Get you a little bucket to keep your scraps in. Let's cut a few scraps. We're going to head over to the ironing board, and I'm going to show you how these interfacings look behind a plain piece of fabric and how they change the structure so you can see how they work with your fabric. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to show you now how to fuse. And the very first thing you want to do is make sure the thing you're fusing to, your actual garment, is wrinkle free. So before you put anything on it, whether it's sew-in or fusible, you want to make sure it's nice and ironed and ready to go. So you don't want any wrinkles in it. Now the thing you cannot iron is iron-on interfacing. Because it has glue, the minute it touches heat, it starts melting. So you do not want to iron this. This is the one that's going to, you do your best to keep it folded nicely so it doesn't wrinkle up too much. I always use a press cloth or pressing sheets. These are my favorites. Okay, so this is a Teflon sheet. I have 3 of them. And I usually sandwich my work between it, depending on what I'm working on. But what this does is this protects the ironing board from the glue and the iron from the glue, because it's really easy to accidentally glue to your ironing board or your iron. So I'm going to put my fabric down, and I'm going to put my interfacing on it. And I have just cut 2 squares, one slightly larger than the other, just to make it a little easier for you to see. And I have my iron. This is quilter's cotton, and this is my featherweight interfacing. I have my iron set to cotton, and you can steam this. What you can't do is actually iron. We are pressing, not ironing. So because I have right side fabric down and then glue side to the wrong side of my fabric, I can start pressing. If you're concerned, like if you have a little bit of this hanging off, if you didn't get a good cut, or if you're pressing it this way, which I don't recommend, but you might end up doing that, and you can see how you might end up with a little bit of your interfacing showing. That will stick to your iron and really cause you some sadness. So I usually do it this direction so that it's always facing down and it's on my pressing sheet. You can either put another piece of fabric on top. You can get pressing sheets. You can just cut a piece of plain white broadcloth to use, or you can use another piece of the Teflon. Now I'm going to go without Teflon so you can see better. This is how we do it. We do not iron. This is ironing. Ironing is where you move it around. We're pressing, so we're going to set it down, put a little bit of pressure and not move it, then completely pick it up, move it over a little bit, and hold it down. Because there's glue, we do not want to be moving this around a bunch. So I'm just going to set this on top, give it a little bit of pressure. You can count to 5 or 10 if you want to, depends on your fabric. And I'm going to move it over. And I completely lift up. I don't slide on my fabric. And now it's glued down. Here's what I don't want to do, move it. I let it cool a little bit. So what I will do often when I'm pressing is I will line up my multiple pieces and I will have them all laid out and I will press them all and then let them sit and move on to something else. I'm going to give this a press. So I can leave that to cool and I can do my next one because it will start to unglue. You've probably had the issue where you're working on your project and you're interfacing. By the time you get to actually applying the piece that you interfaced, your facing or your collar or whatever, it's starting to come undone. Now you can just go back and repress it. But the reason it comes undone is it's never really expected to be like such an amazing and permanent bond on a lot of these. Now I will say on my jackets where I use the weft interfacing, it really stays on well. So we're just going to let those cool. Once you sew through it, even if it's starting to come loose, it won't matter because you have stitching holding it down. So it's okay if it starts to come loose once it's sewn. If you're having issues before it's sewn, go ahead and see, here's my shape flex. It's kind of wrinkly, so I'm going to be real careful. Once it's sewn, it doesn't matter if it's coming loose in places because it's still doing its job. It's laying in between the layers, giving some shape. If you have one of those big presses, you know, the presses, you can lay this on there and use that press. That works great for doing like your collars and cuffs and facings, but I would recommend putting a protection of some kind, whether it's a Teflon sheet or a pressing cloth or something like that, so that you don't end up accidentally gluing something to your nice press. One note about these super duper stiff interfacings that you use for crafting is you may have to fuse it on the other side just because of the density of the actual piece of interfacing you're using. When I put this on, I'm going to go ahead and give it a press, but often I will flip it over and press from the other side because it's actually, the fabric is thinner and the heat gets through a little better. Look, it's stuck to my iron. And it didn't really glue down at all. This is the non-glue side that's stuck too. So I'm going to flip it over and we're going to do it this way. Let's see if it works better. And this is one where it might not be a bad idea to give it a little squirt of water to help. It actually will make it heat up a little bit more. Get a little steam going. Now that's stuck to the iron, but it wasn't the glue that stuck. It was just the piece stuck to the iron instead. Okay, I'm going to touch this early even though I tell you not to. And that's stuck. Now this is one that will want to come loose just because of the stiffness. It'll start to pull. It's just how it is. But there it's on. So you may have to fuse from the other side too. Now if you're working with knits like this, you can't use as high a heat. I've been on cotton. I'm going to go back down to a synthetic layer, synthetic temperature, and let that cool a little bit. And you want to fuse, you want to check your stretch, and you want to cut it so that your stretch of your interfacing and the stretch of your fabric go the same way. This one is one that's stretchy. That one isn't stretchy. Yeah, okay, so we're going to do stretch with stretch so they go the same way. And I'm not going to hold it down as long. This is one that I usually do like to use as a press cloth for because it just is sticky. The glue kind of seeps through the other side of the fabric. See how it sticks to my iron? And you can see I'm not I'm not pushing around. I'm just doing quick shots of press because I don't want to melt my fabric. This is a synthetic. And it's on. So now we'll just let it cool. All right, I'm gonna get these others pressed on, and then we're gonna head over and look at how they've changed and how they react to our fabrics. I'll see you over back at the table in a minute. All right, let's have a quick look at all of our interfacings and how they look on the fabrics. All I did was cut my interfacing in the smaller square and my fabric in the larger square. I just used 2 of these little quilter template squares to cut them out, except for the Peltex. The Peltex, I didn't use these. I went a little smaller because I already had a scrap. So this is the Peltex. It's the stiffest one we did today. It's on a quilter's cotton, and you can see how stiff this is. Great if you want something that will stand on its own. This is great for crafts and great for some decor type things. So this is Peltex, and you can see out here how soft the fabric is and then how stiff it is. You can hear how stiff it is. Peltex, stiffest stuff, very seldom used for garment making unless you're doing maybe some cosplay type costuming or something like that. Nice and stiff. Okay, this is one that you'll probably use a lot. This is the shirt tailor. This is the Pellon. It's 950F. All of these that have F just mean fusible. And again, quilter's cotton. You can see the shape. This is the right side. This is a really lovely weight. Great for garment making. You could be used in so many applications. A good one just to keep on hand for most projects. It'll end up working for a lot of things, shirt tailor. And that's how I feel about Shape Flex also. Shape Flex has a lot of the same weight feel of the shirt tailor, but it's a woven. It's fusible. This is a batiste, a woven batiste, but fusible. You can see the shape. It's just got a little bit more shape than the Shape Flex, or I'm sorry, than the shirt tailor, but it feels great. You can see how it looks on both sides. This is one of my new favorite ones. I really love it. This is the Decor Bond. I can't remember if I showed this to you earlier. I might have showed it to you, but didn't say what it was. This is Decor Bond, and this is, it fuses nicely. You can actually see how it seems a little tight compared to what's outside here. I don't know if you can see that. I'm gonna lay this down. Can you see how it looks a little tight where this is, and this looks a little looser, like this is shrunk? It hasn't really, it's just the amount of glue that's in there. I think this is really for interior type projects. I have always used this for my bag making projects. I have a cat hair stuck in here. Figures. So I use this for bag making. It is nice and stiff, but not too stiff. It's I think some people will use this in some interior projects. I will tell you, if you're going to make like curtains, for instance, and do the headers, I like buckram, and you can buy buckram in rolls of length, so you can get it like your curtain header height. I really do like a buckram for that project personally. I mean, and they often sell it specifically for making your curtains. So this is Decor Bond, good for, again, to me this is a craft one. I would use this for making zipper bags and tote bags and that sort of thing. This is how it looks on the right side. It's nice and stiff. If I hold it, you can see it's pretty stiff, but not nearly as stiff as that Peltex. Peltex will just stand on its own. Perfectly stiff. This one, of course, won't, but it's still nice and stiff. Now this is featherweight. This is the one that I buy in bolts and I use a whole lot. This is sort of like the shirt shaper for me. I like this. I use this in most of my projects. I'm just noticing I'm missing one thumbnail. Sorry about that, guys. I should have painted that. I have the nail stickers on right now and I lost one. I was at the ranch with my dad and I peeled it up when I was out. I carried some water out to a calf and I ruined my one nail. Anyway, I'll have to put pictures in at the end. It was a beautiful weekend with my dad. This is the featherweight. It's 911. The FF again is for fusible. I really like this weight for garment construction, especially for the type of clothes that I make. It has it's good for behind buttonholes and buttons. It's good for a facing. And this is the one that I tend to buy by the bolt.
So I'm going to show you now. Let me make sure I have another fusible. Okay, the next few are going to be sew-in for similar thing, but the sew-in ones. This is the organdy, and I have just basted it in. I have a white organdy. I used an ivory thread just to make it a little easier to see, but then you can't see anything because I use the splatter paint fabric, just using up scraps. But here's the organdy. I like the way this feels. This is what I used inside the cuffs of that silk charmeuse. It has, it gives weight and stiffness, but it doesn't completely change the fabric that it's on. So you still have the nature of the fabric, which I really appreciate. I really like organdy. Broadcloth and batiste also do that. This one's a broadcloth. Just based it on. This broadcloth really matches well to quilters' cottons or cotton poplins, things that you would make a shirt out of. Broadcloth is great. And again, you can see it adds stability, but it doesn't add a lot of thickness. It keeps the nature of the fabric. And batiste is even a little softer, so if you're going with something a little more delicate, I would definitely use a batiste. In that case, it's even softer. Still gives you stability, still can do buttonholes and buttons, but let's say it was a waistband. If you're doing a waistband and you want to sew in, I would definitely go with an organdy or maybe even a buckram for a waistband. These are great for collars, cuffs, and plackets, but once you hit to waistbands, you might need a buckram. And now let's look at a couple knits here. And these are, what I did, I showed you over there, is I fused them so that my stretch goes the same way. And I have two different fusible knits here. And you can, it may be a little hard to see in the camera, but they are different. This one's a little lighter weight than this one. And they do not change the nature of the knit at all. They just give it a little bit of stability. If I were doing a knit that I had to do a drawstring in or a buttonhole or a button, something like that, this is great. You could even, if you're just having problems with your neckline not laying nicely, you could fuse that neckline area. I would pink the edge so that you don't end up with a definition on the other side. I don't know if you can see, but you can sometimes see the line where the interfacing was, and if you pink that edge, that helps give you an indefinite line and make it less noticeable. So if you're going to do something like that, do pink it. But these are the two knits that I have. One's a little heavier than the other, and they work great. They feel different. This one's lighter than this one. And this is just a poly jersey knit. And the same poly jersey, but this time I used another poly jersey as an interfacing, and I did zigzag it on because this has a lot of stretch. I matched my stretch so that they will move together. The stretch is the same, and so that's why I chose a zigzag. This is how it looks on this side. Of course, when you're sewing this as a garment, this zigzag will all be on the wrong side. On the inside, it won't ever show on the outside, but that's just so they hold together, and then you can see the weight. Again, I could do a buttonhole on that or a drawstring, or it could, if it were neckline facing, something like that.
All right, I hope you enjoyed this little introduction and a little bit of a deep dive too into interfacings and how you would use them. I hope this is helpful for you, especially if interfacing is new to you or it can be a little overwhelming. You walk in, if you're fortunate enough to be able to walk in where they have interfacing in stock. If you are buying online like most of us are, I hope by my handling this and giving you a little bit of an overview, it will help you when you go to purchase online. Hopefully this helps you. All right, friends, thanks for hanging out and learning about interfacing, and I will see you next week for another fun video. If you're interested, after this, I'll put a couple pictures in of my weekend at the ranch with my dad. It was so beautiful. It was restful and lovely, and it's also why I'm behind on answering comments and doing things. So enjoy these lovely pictures from out in the country.